So a couple years back, I got to play in a game that lasted about 4 sessions. Unfortunately, it ended really quickly, but it was quite memorable. It started off with a gang of artificers and me being a sorcerer, and we also had a Warforged fighter as well. And let me tell you something. Don't ever, and I mean ever, expect D&D when playing with people that have a military background to ever go smoothly. Not in a bad way, but when you give a couple Unga Bungas with technical know-how the ability to build shit, they're gonna build all types of affront to the D&D gods that even the DM will shit themselves in terror with. At one point we had 4 artificers, the Warforged, and then me, a simple tiefling sorcerer. We were quite literally a wrecking ball of bullshit, and once I leveled up enough to get Fireball, oh, it was game over. Why was it game over, you may ask? Because me and the Warforged were normal people with no sort of military background in a TeamSpeak call with 4 Marines at the time that literally put their collective brain cells together to make charts, fucking charts, in order to build things that would make the dwarves scream OSHA violation. I'm fairly certain these guys were making it a point to commit as many war crimes as they could. Geneva Convention? Fuck that. More like Geneva Suggestion. Non-humans aren't covered under that, so yes, officer, technically goblins can be considered cannon fodder without it being a problem. Now, what actually happened is the real question. Essentially, when I finally unlocked Fireball, it was like the gorillas in the room had discovered a whole new plethora of potential bullshit. Our DM was very much encouraging us to build and craft nice tasty war crimes, so the artificers asked me and the Warforged if we were cool with waiting 1 month in-game for them to achieve something. Fuck it, our last few quests went really well and left us with a lot of money, so me and the Warforged just kinda hung out, relaxed, played cards, drank, exercised, etc, etc. We just lived life. Then afterwards, they made... Honestly, I wouldn't even begin to know how to describe it properly. So imagine, if you will, a seat, like a chair, surrounded in armor plating with a pneumatic cannon on it, a focal point covered in arcane crystals, and an actual Fey spirit duct taped to what I can only assume was a battery. Now, we had no idea what the hell this thing was, but don't worry. These apes that were our artificer gave us the full TED Talk on what it was. By their powers combined and with no supervision, they posted charts, diagrams, and other shit that basically said the following.
So we're gonna have the Warforged carry this on his back, and you, Mr. Sorcerer, are gonna sit there in the dome on the Warforged's back, and the Warforged is gonna aim the cannon at the bad guys.
Yeah, what happens then is you cast Fireball, and all these crystals are basically loaded with, as difficult as it was, essentially a reworked counterspell.
Yeah, instead of countering it, it'll actually copy it, and then every crystal will copy that spell at least once, and once it's all been copied, it'll follow out the tube. Then the Fey Spirit will recharge the crystal and your spell slot.
Essentially, it will be a belt-fed Fireball launcher if you don't know the inner workings. These crystals on the outside will also act as a speed booster and send whatever spell you fire into it zooming out at anywhere above 120 miles per hour, if not more, I think. We're a little iffy on the math.
Ladies and gentlemen, these fucking apes that could barely tie their own shoes without accidentally setting someone on fire had built, with the DM's permission and supervision, what can only be described as a belt-fed Fireball launcher. It worked with any spell, but let's be real, Fireball is the only answer to anything and everything. And it recharged. The Fey Spirit that was slapped on the side like a hastily put together Duracell battery pack would recharge my spell slot. I mean, sure, it would get very close to dying once its energy was drained, but then it would just recharge itself with surrounding magical energy that was left over from the crystals. It was a never-ending, belt-fed Fireball launcher. We strolled right into an ancient tomb and demanded that the Lich hand over its lunch money, and when it refused because it had to be the smartest thing in the room, we turned on the fucking thing and, well, I recall having to use a dice roller and use a calculator with everyone and roll, and I'm not exaggerating here, 256 D6 dice to account for the 32 crystals that were all casting copies of Fireball and each doing their own 8d6. The Lich insulted us and called us beneath him, and then not even a moment later we introduced him to the equivalent of walking on the fucking sun. Nothing was left. The Lich didn't even get a chance to scream as almost 40 fireballs were flung out of the cannon instantaneously and roasted the man into an extra crispy undead sandwich. Bandit Fortress? Set on fire. tyrant king that won't pay us for killing a dragon, have fun ruling over a napalm-rich environment, a literal fuck-mothering storm giant wants to talk down to us, have fun trying to counterspell 32 fireballs at once, you big ugly lightning rod, among many other unfortunate bosses, a few bureaucrats, basically the equivalent of D&D's IRS in this homebrew world we were dealing with, and I'm not lying here, one wedding that got really wild. Sadly, the game ended due to scheduling issues with the DM getting a new job, but I still remember fondly the sound of war crimes we committed atop probably D&D's earliest form of a Mobile Suit Gundam with the napalm cannon on it. Thanks for watching. Be sure to check out our other vids, and I hope you have fun in your future D&D games. D&D is a great game, and I got hundreds of other experiences that I want to share. Remember to roll those perception checks for the next one, and happy hunting, adventurers.